Hi, I'm Doug Fields, and I'm so honored to share with you in this short training about the power of listening. And I wish I could share this training with you and say that it comes from the abundance of my overflowing strengths, and I'm such a great listener, but the reality is that I've had to learn the skill of listening the hard way. See, I've been told countless times that I'm not a very good listener, and while that's difficult to hear, the truth is that as leaders, you and I are just a bundle of strengths and weaknesses, that no one is great at everything and everyone has areas that they can improve upon. And becoming a great listener has been a growth area in my life. And for those of you who find listening to be a natural, easy skill, please help those of us who struggle. See, that's one of the wonderful gifts of working with a team of people, that we can all combine our strengths and weaknesses and we're better together. So here's a question to get you thinking about listening. Can you tell the difference between someone who genuinely listens to you and someone who appears to be listening, but you can kind of tell by their eyes or their body language that they're not really listening? Well, of course you can. You know, one posture makes you feel valued when they look you right in the eyes, and the other one makes you question whether the person really cares about you. And as youth workers, there's a lot at stake for us to become good listeners, and really it's a part of our leadership. So let me tell you about this one guy in my youth group. His name is Kyle. Kyle talked non-stop. At first, I thought it was just natural because he was a freshman, and freshmen got, some just go crazy, and he was one of those guys. But Kyle talked that way all the way through his years of high school. He was very involved in our ministry, and he was always talking. And every time I'd see Kyle walk into the room, to be honest, part of me looked for a place to hide. And there was another part of me that wanted to try to figure out how to really like him. I mean, I knew I could love him like Christians are supposed to love one another with the help of God's Spirit, but it was just kind of the liking him part that was difficult. If he cornered me in a conversation, it could be like 30 minutes later, and it would typically revolve around, well, it seemed like nothing. I mean, this kid could talk about nothing better than anyone I knew. It's like, wake me up from my self-induced coma. But one day, Kyle asked to talk to me, which was unusual because he normally didn't ask to talk. He would just start talking. And he began telling me about his parents, and they were headed for a divorce. And he looked at me through these kind of tender and worried eyes. And for the first time I realized that, what Kyle's really wanted all along is Kyle's wanted an adult to kind of stop their world to listen to him and really care. Kyle didn't want me to preach a sermon. He didn't want me to fix a family problem or talk to his parents. He just wanted me to genuinely listen to him in the midst of his pain. And it was really in that moment and others like it in my ministry that, I learned the powerful truth that I had avoided because I was avoiding Kyle. And the truth was he just wanted to be heard. And the truth is that all students are different in how they want to be heard. See, some students, they're going to talk your ear off. Some are never going to say anything. Some drive you crazy. Some are totally polite. Some make you wonder, whether their sugar intake should be regulated. Some make you wish your entire youth group were just like them because they're like saints. But here's the thing about all students, as different as they are, as unique as their needs are, they all want someone who listens well. And you as a leader, you can have a big impact in the life of a teenager just by the way that you listen. Sometimes it's not about saying anything at all. You just be a great ear, and you let them talk. You let them talk it out. And you give them the honor of being completely present. Now, I know that's important, so I want to give you some practical ideas, some tips on how you can become a better listener, okay? I'm going to give you several, but let me just give you the biggie first. This is the biggest. It's really to listen for the tone beyond their words, or listen for the emotion. That'd be another way to say it, or to listen between the lines. Now, you don't read between the lines, you actually just listen between the lines. There's a volunteer, her name was Amanda. And she was great. She was a long-term veteran volunteer, and she was a good listener who taught me a lot. She knew how to listen between the lines. And I remember one Sunday, we were actually standing right outside this youth room that I'm in right now, and we were greeting kids as they walked in together. And when we greeted students, you know, they'd say hi, whatever. This one girl, Sarah, comes by, and I go, "Hi, Sarah, how are you?" And she gives us this typical, "I'm fine" response, and she went inside. And then Amanda turned to me and she said, "Is there something going on with Sarah that you know of?" I was like, "No, I mean, not that I know of. She just said she was fine. She smiled. Everything seems to be okay." She went in. And Amanda said, "You know, I heard something in her voice and I'm going to check it out. And I heard some sadness. I'm going to go follow up with her on that fine." I'm like, I didn't hear anything. But Amanda heard something that wasn't apparent to me because I didn't really know at the time how to listen between the lines. And she followed up with Sarah and she heard about her pain that week. And, you know, Amanda had this amazing ability to listen to kids and to pay attention to the sounds beyond their words. And that was such a biggie to me. And that's what I want you to consider, to listen between the lines. Now, let me give you some other tips that you can talk about as a team of leaders. I'm not going to have the time to unpack them, but here are some signs that show you that you're not a good listener. You're not listening well. One sign is that you catch yourself thinking of a response to the very first statement out of a student's mouth. I mean, he or she is talking and you're sacrificing your listening to jump in with a response or a stump speech on that particular issue. That's not good listening. Another sign that you're not a good listener is you allow your eyes to wander around from a student's face and you're distracted by what's happening in the room. So instead of good eye contact, you're thinking about what's happening for the program or it's not ready. And it's totally understandable for you and I to be concerned about what's happening in the room, and the accuracy of the countdown timer that's on the screen, but not while you're listening to a teenager. So eye contact is just key. And maybe that's why, they say listening or eye contact is the language of love, because kids can see that you love them through your eye contact. Another sign when you're not a good listener is when you don't remember a student's name after about 30 seconds that you've asked for. And I know this is a tough one, but a teenager's name is his or her greatest possession. So you listen well, you lock in on that name, and then you show them value when you use his or her name. Because really a big part of remembering names is listening actively instead of allowing your mind to just kind of wander in the process. Here's another sign. Another sign that you're not a good listener is when you ask how a student is doing, and then without pausing for a response, you continue talking or you don't really pay attention to their answer. And when someone doesn't feel heard or listened to, they don't feel valued or respected. So you put pauses into your ministry cadence. And I promise, if you pause and just listen, I promise it'll pay off. And maybe that's why, the biblical wisdom in the book of James says, "Dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen and slow to speak," and then slow to become angry, but quick to listen. So let's pivot to think about positive. What's positive signs that you're a good listener, you're listening well? Well, one is to listen without interruption. That you allow the teenager to tell you everything he or she wanted before you respond. You keep your focus on the student and on the conversation, and you let them finish without interrupting them or even asking additional questions. See, when you're tuned in, he or she is going to feel tremendous value. Then, another way you know you're a good listener is when you ask specific follow-up questions. Not just general questions like, how was your day? And then, what are you doing? Follow-up questions about their day. Specific that will take that conversation to a deeper place. You see, that's a sign that you're listening. It's your ability to ask follow-up questions that will actually bring more out of that teenager. And to help you do this, you're going to need to stay focused on that person. This actually, for me, sometimes it requires me to move my conversation to a place where I'm free from distractions or nobody's behind them. I face the wall with them behind them, so I'm not distracted. Because here it is. Your students are expecting you Well, they're expecting you to have a lot of the right answers. They're expecting that you'll care for them and listen to them. And listening loudly communicates that you care about kids, you care about students. Now, if you're already a good listener, fabulous, way to go. You didn't need this. You're a model to the rest of us. But if you're not a good listener, you'll get better. Give yourself some grace. If it isn't your strength, know that it's just going to take some time. It's going to take some practice. You might need to ask somebody if you're a good listener, because listening is actually a skill to develop. It's kind of an art. And if you practice it, you can master it, okay? If you ask somebody who's close to you, if you're a good listener, and they're honest and they give you some feedback, it might sting a little, but it's going to be worth it, because for me, when I went, people are telling me I'm not a very good listener, this is a skill I've got to develop. I hope you'll develop it as well. That's it. So now let's practice it. Next time you see some students, just remember that one of the ways that you show them love is to listen, and to listen well. Thank you for your commitment to teenagers, to your commitment to grow as a leader and to develop in your skills and in your faith. I'm honored to have had some time with you. So blessings to you as you listen to students this week.